I'll always ask first when I remember, because occasionally I forget to even turn on the recording. But before I turn on the recording, I always try to make sure that you're okay with that. And then this way we can link it to the slides within the PD catalog so that everybody that isn't with us right now can watch it later. And then also if you need to revisit it later, just to kind of refresh your memory about something, you can do that as well. So let's jump right into it and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. So just to get started, we're going to learn how to, oh, I gotta fix that. This part is not correct. I will fix that. We're just going to learn how to, like, why use Google Forms? Why can Google Forms be helpful? How can they be helpful to you as a teacher? How can they be helpful to you as a person who needs to collect information? How can they be used for assessment? What kind of ideas are there out there? Then we'll go through creating a new form, the different question types and menu options that are available. I'll briefly go over themes to kind of make give your survey or your Google form a little pizzazz. And then we'll just talk about the sharing settings, notification settings, how to look at it to make sure that it makes sense for students to follow. And then we'll look at responses through the summary section and the Google Sheets section. And then I'll share some resources with you. So I know that seems like a lot, but I'm going to try to go, kind of slowly and just talk to you about what these options are and how they can be used. Now, before I do that, I would just like to give you an idea of what would be a good use of a Google form. Okay, so why use Google Forms? Well, I'm going to display right now an exit ticket. And an exit ticket is a great way to try to assess students' understanding after the lesson, or to do kind of like a check-in at any point. So this is something that I've linked into the slideshow, and I will share this out with you, and you can make a copy of it and use it if you want. And it's also, once you make a copy, it's completely editable. So you can change this and modify any of these in any way you want. So this is just, a real simple exit ticket, asking students to put in their name, their email address. We can also choose to automatically collect that, which I will show you when we get to the sharing settings. And, just a simple question: what's one important thing you learned in class today? Did you feel prepared for today's lesson? Why or why not? And what would help to make today's lesson more effective? We may even want to throw in another question in there. It's like, let me just do that now. I can put in another question and bring it down to the bottom. And you say, what do you feel you need to learn differently? Okay, so maybe they just didn't really get it, and I'm trying to understand, okay, what do you feel you need to learn differently? Because maybe the way that it was presented does not work for this particular learner. So that's just an example of an exit ticket. Now, I want to show you another example of an interest inventory that I did with my students in the beginning of the year. I don't know if you know, but I had covered the brand new cybersecurity class at the high school this year for probably about the first 6 weeks of school until the teacher that we hired was released from her previous district. So it was an awesome experience. I really, really missed being in the classroom. But I thought it was important right out of the gate to really assess my students to find out who they were, what their interests were. So this is an example of some of the questions that I had asked them. What subjects are challenging? What do you love the most? How can I capture what can teachers do to capture your interest? Just so you can learn a little bit about them. So, and then I talk to them about what their career options are moving forward. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because if we look here, we can see that the students in the class responded. It was a small class, so it was very it was just really a great experience. But so the students responded back, and I can see all of their responses here at the bottom of my sheet, when I also can click back and see the questions that I asked. But the other thing that we can do is we can export it into Google Sheets. And with the simple click, we export to Google Sheets. And now I have all of my student answers here. Now I've blocked out all of the student names because these are very personal questions as to you know, what their strengths and needs are. So it was kind of long, but now I can kind of look, I can focus on a single answer. I can try to look in to see the responses for each individual student from left to right, or I can look at a particular question class-wide and just look from top to bottom to see what their answers were. So those are two really great uses of forms, because it's always going to bring you this format where you have it time-stamped. It can automatically collect the student's email address, and then whatever questions you ask are in a nice, concise, single place for you to look at and assess. So those are just two different options for creating assessments. Now, any other quiz, you know, any other type of check-in or assessment, formative, summative, that you would try to create for students just to kind of gauge where they are or to assess mastery at the end, this is a great tool for you to be able to do that. And really, there are a ton of different options. So I'm going to open up a new tab right now. And I am going to go to, this is a nice quick trick if you want to get to Google Forms. So you can type in forms.new in your browser, and voila, we got a brand new Google form. The other way we could do this is we could go directly into our Google Drive, and we can choose new. And then we'd scroll down to more. And then here we go. We have a brand new Google form here. So I could click on that and open up a brand new form too. So that's just a few more clicks, but whatever you're comfortable with. And Google's pretty great that way, that anytime you open up a new tab and type either docs.new, sheets.new, slides.new, or forms.new, you're going to get a brand new form or doc or slide. Okay, that being said, the first thing we have to do is give our form a title. So I am going to call this, this is going to be our quiz. I can put the date here. I mean, I can really title this however I want to, but I'll do this just for now. What's great about that is as soon as you put your title in here, it's going to automatically put it there too. You can give a description here where we would type directions for students. And you can see that the default is set, so it's automatically collecting email addresses for Somerville Public District users. So since this is a form that we would be sending out to students, we definitely want that. But I'll go over later how sometimes I will change the settings whenever I let you know that we're putting out an anonymous survey and we're not asking for anyone's information, because we really just want that raw honesty about what staff members need. So I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. But for the purposes of sending it out for student assessments, you definitely want to collect the email addresses, because then you can be sure, number one, that students are logging in with their Somerville email account, and you know automatically that that email address will connect with the students when you ask them to put in their name. So the first question that will always be here is listed as an untitled question. I'm going to click on that to open it up. Okay. The first default option is multiple choice, and I'm going to go over the different options with you in a moment. But my what I always start with here is I start with first name and last name. Okay, so I do first name, and did you see what happened there? A little Google magic. It changed from multiple choice to short answer because it knows that just based on the text that I typed in what I'm looking for. So they know that I'm looking for a short answer. I want to make this required because I want students to have to answer it, okay? Then I'm going to make a copy of this. And I make a copy of this not because I'm lazy, I'm just trying to save time, but I do like it as an option. So I'm going to share it with you right now. If I click copy, all I have to do is erase this part. I do to LA, and now I get my last name too. So it's also required. It's also a short answer. It's saving my settings as I go. And that is a tip that I use for every single form that I put out when I need to have a first name and a last name. Now, why do I do those separately? I do them separately because, and I'm going to pop back over here to the example, I like to be able to filter and sort, but maybe alphabetically by last name or alphabetically by first name. And it gives me the ability to have those two fields separate. And that's something that I've found over the years to be very helpful. If you assign students a number as opposed to their names, you could also ask them to fill in that information that way. Okay, now let's look at our question type. So I'm going to come over here. I will explore this menu in a few minutes, but the first one that I want to click on is add question. Okay, so now I'm getting a brand new question right underneath the last question that I put in. Again, you have options for the default is multiple choice. But let's look at this menu here. Okay, we have short answer, which is going to be a short amount of text for your free response questions. Longer questions that are going to need a longer response, you're going to want to choose paragraph so that students have more space to enter the characters in their responses. Multiple choice is just that. It's multiple choice, and that means that there has to be a correct answer. Okay, and there can only be one correct answer if you're going to choose multiple choice. Checkboxes you would use if you wanted students to be able to check all that apply. Okay, so if we wanted the students to be able to check, multiple answers that could be correct answers, we would then choose checkboxes. Another option that we have is a drop down. And if we use the drop down, then that means we have to put in specific response options, and then students would have the ability to drop down. So I'm just going to do a quick thing here for the sake of time. So this would be number three. Okay. And then I would have to put in my options here. So I'd put in 4. Now watch what happened there, okay? It's suggesting that since I have numbers there to add all if I want, or I could just add the number 2 or the number 1. So Google Forms is very, has that like the AI component of it, that it's predicting what types of questions you're asking and then trying to give you options. So you're not always starting from scratch. So it can be very helpful, or you could decide to just, you could just type in those options. So I'm going to choose add all. Now you can see I have my 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll just throw in an 8 in there anyway, just to kind of have that as another option. So this is a drop down, and we'll look at what that looks like for students on the student side when we go into the view. Let me show you a couple of other options here. Now, if you wanted students to be able to submit a file you could choose this right now. So let's say I had an assessment where I wanted students to take a picture with their Chromebook or with their phone of their completed project. And I wanted them to just upload a picture. Well, I could choose file upload, and then students would have to select that link and they would be able to enter a file. So just for example, let me add another question here. And let me scroll down. Okay, please upload your photo. Now I'm going to click here and choose the file upload. Okay, and what that means is then that's going to give me the ability to ask students to send me their information, and then I will also get that as a link in a spreadsheet. So it's it's very helpful in a lot of ways. We can kind of leave this here, but there are settings that you can adjust in case students needed larger file types. Okay, let's do another question here and see what other options we have. So on the other options we have are to have a linear scale. So if I wanted students to rate their understanding, please. I may choose a 1 on the low end and a 5 on the high end. So I might label one, I don't. Okay, so we can rate it from I don't understand to I am an expert. And then I can kind of gauge their understanding based on having them self-reflect on their own learning process. I'll add another question here. And now you can see how that looks different, where students would have to select one of the radio buttons to be able to add in their self-assessment. We go down further, we have the ability to create a multiple choice grid. So if we do that, then there would only be one option that could be selected in each row and column. So if we needed students to rate I can show you an example in a few minutes. We asked middle school students to rate their preference to different types of electives. So they had to have their first choice, second choice, third, fourth, fifth, and we had each class listed. So students could only have one first choice and one fifth choice. So they had to make sure that they had only one in each row and one in each column. Okay, that's an option there. So I can just do, let's see, art. I'll give you an example, music, and okay. Not all of the options will give you predictive text. So just know that, you know, sometimes you'll notice that something will pop up asking you if you just want it to autofill for you, and other times that won't be available. Okay, this here is what I was talking about, that I wanted a response in each row. So I'm going to click that to make sure that students can't skip any one of their choices. I'll add another question here. And this one is a little bit different because it's a checkbox grid. And I would use that similar to the multiple choice grid, but in this case, there can be more than one correct answer in each row and column. Okay, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. But then there are other options for you to enter a date. So perhaps I am, give you an example of, I am in the, let's say we're back in school, physically in school, And I've created this assessment for students to tell me about the project that they're going to complete, okay? So they're going to give me an outline of who they worked with, and then I want them to give me the date out of a range of choices that they are going to present. So let's say it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I can give them a time. We could add something like that in. I'm going to skip that one for right now, though. And let me just jump back over here and check in with you before I go into the other options. Okay, let me just check the chat here to see if we have any questions. Yes, I will be. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be adding the recording link. Yes, Denise, you can. Great question. Let's hop over and show you that. Okay. So I'm going to go back over here to my quiz. Now, I have my quizzes here, or my questions here, I'm sorry. Know that even though I numbered these, you may choose not to. Why? Well, you may want to randomize the order of the questions so that every student doesn't get the same exact form, just like we used to have the paper A and B forms when we give our assessments. So that is an option. So if you're going to do that, I would eliminate numbering here. Okay. Now, to answer your question, Denise, we have add our question here, but we also have the ability to import questions. So if I click on import questions, I can import questions from other forms that have already been created. So I can see the other forms that I've had here, and this is a form that I had found through a web search. So I can just click on that and then select, and it would import all of those questions. Okay, now, as I get these import questions, I can select all, or I can just select a few. So this is a nice option when maybe you have found something on the internet already that someone else made, and you want to be able to import questions and also choose which ones you really want and then edit them once they're in. The other option is if you have a colleague that has already created a Google form and they say, it's working for them, you can ask for access to that. You can import that too, and then make it your own type of an assessment. And again, I'm just going to select a couple of these and I'll import those two questions. Here they are, okay? My paragraph text and my long answer text. But then I could also always go in and change this. So I can say, where is your, it doesn't even have to be related. I could say, where is your favorite vacation spot? It's okay, Bubs. All right, guys. And this is why we don't do live learning, except for us, because adults tend to be more forgiving than students can be sometimes. So let me pop back over here. Hopefully he stays quiet. And I can include that in there. If I don't like that question, I can delete it. And then I can undo it if I needed to, and then that's added in. So just know that anything that you import, you can edit as well. Remember to make sure that you require the questions that you want to make sure that students can't skip. Okay, moving down on this sidebar menu. So we went through all of the question types from short answer to our different multiple choice questions, file uploads, and our grids. Now we're looking at this floating menu that's here that kind of moves down the page with each additional assessment question that you add in. So here we could add in a title and a description. So perhaps I want to chunk my sections to give students a new area with like a subtitle and also direction. So maybe the assessment kind of changes from you know, going into different headers based on your content. So you can add in your title here. So if this was the case, I can do this and pull it up, and now I have this title kind of breaks it up. So it's not a question. There's just an area where I can put a title and add another description for students, and then have the content underneath that fits in with that heading. Another option, okay, these two are pretty cool. I tend to like them a lot because it's a nice way to provide visuals. So let's go in here to add an image. Okay, so I can upload an image. I can take a picture with a camera, a document camera, or anything that's connected to my screen. I can go to a direct URL. I can search through my Google Drive, but I want to show you this. Google image search. Okay, so I have my Google image search here, and now all I have to do is type in my what I'd like to search for. So I'll click pyramids, and now I have these lovely Google image pictures of various types of images that I can click on and insert. Okay, so perhaps I wanted to then ask questions for students to carefully analyze this picture and tell me, based on what they've learned from the reading, what this is a picture of and where is it located. Okay, so I would put this, I would have to put in an image title here. So we'll call it and then maybe directly underneath it, here is where I want to ask students the question that I just said. I want them to analyze the picture and tell me where it's located and how do they know that. So I would click Add Question here, and I can pull it up by clicking on those dots, and I can make this a paragraph. And okay, so you get the point there about analyze the photo, and then they would be able to provide me with that paragraph text. Next, and know that it's always, whatever you have selected is always going to have a colored bar around it. So now that I'm on this question is highlighted. So this way you know where you are as you navigate through your various questions. And again, this is where we can click and drag up or drag down, depending on the order that we want our questions to be listed. So I'm just going to pull this one up, and there we go. Okay, now I'm down on this last question, and let's go in here and add a video. This, if you already had a YouTube video that you wanted to put in, you would choose the URL, and you would just type the URL in and the picture will come in. But let's go here and do a search on okay, so now it is scouring YouTube to try to find an appropriate, and I say appropriate because it's just based on a search of whatever keywords I put in. So it's definitely important for you to watch the video to make sure that's the exact content you want to be included in your lesson. So let's say, for example, I want to just look at this. It's 6 minutes long. I can just click on that play button right here. It's going to show me the entire content. And then if I'm happy with that, I can click select. and put that video right in there, and then I can ask a question about it. So I say, okay, so please watch this video and answer the questions below. And then I would go down and I would, underneath it, I would add another question, and then I would choose what I wanted to ask students based on what I wanted them to walk away with or take away with from watching the video. Okay, this last piece right here is to add a section, and that's kind of similar to the title, but when adding sections, and I'll go over this more in the deeper dive in our advanced PD session coming up, I believe next week or the week after. If we wanted to add a section, that will give us a way to have students answer and then jump to a different portion of our assessment. So it gives us the ability to kind of add in a section, and then instead of just having that floating title that we had up top where I sectioned these out with just this title, this gives us more of an actual section where we get the option to continue to this area based on the answer. So we'll go over that again in the advanced options, because that can be more of a prescriptive type of assessment that you can create for students. Okay. Now let me come up here to the top. And obviously, this is just for example purposes only. I would never create an assessment that asks them what 2 by 2 is and then have them select something. I'm just trying to give you different examples of different types of questions that you could ask based on the options that we have here in Google Forms. So just to kind of summarize here with the different types of questions, I love the fact that it is that simple and that I have so many different assessment types that really helps me make sure that I'm asking the right type of question that's going to give me the information that I need to learn how well my students understand the content. The other thing I love about it is that it's very simple to customize this and bring in things directly from the web without having to search too much for different images and videos. And especially now where we're at with our online learning for students, the addition of videos and imagery and just those visuals are so important to try to help students connect with that learning so that it's not in a vacuum. We really have to assume that just like we would provide visuals in the classroom, we're providing visuals that are really going to help frame that learning experience for students, and it's a great way to keep that in one place. So, a reminder of what that image was that was referenced in our reading of the text that I shared with them. Drop that picture back in here just to kind of refresh their memory and keep them engaged and going. Same thing with adding the video here. It only allows you to add YouTube videos here, but there is a lot of great content out there. So for the videos that are not the videos that you're pre-recording, you can always add in videos that are already created out there just to try to add more to your assessments. Okay, that being said, let's come over here and look at just the aesthetics of it. So it gives you this generic like purple lavender background. I'm not that crazy about it because I want to make this different, okay? So I'm going to choose Customize Theme. Now, we have different color schemes. I'm going to get to the header in a moment. We have different color schemes that we can choose. So if I wanted to go Someville Orange, I can choose that there. That's a little bit more of the Ville Orange, and I can change the background color. Another thing that I love about Google Forms is that while it does give you the ability to try to make this look more appealing aesthetically, it doesn't give you a whole lot of options for like fonts and things like that. So you just have these 4, you know, generic options here, and you can choose the one that suits you best. I like that because then we don't get into the weeds of trying to make things look too pretty. We have a couple of options. You choose the one that looks good for you, and then you move on. Okay, here is where we're going to look for that, choose that image. So you can upload a photo, or you can go through these different these different types, and just choose something that works. So let's say I'm going to choose this one right here, and I'll choose insert. Okay, so now I have it changed the background based on the theme itself. I could make small changes to that if I wanted to, or I can leave it as is. And it's just another nice way to add visual representations to it. In the advanced PD that I will do for in the next session that we have, I will go over how to create a header that you can personalize with any photo you want. And I'll do that later because it involves using Google Drawings, and I don't want to get too deep into that right now. So let me just check back over here, see if we have any questions. Okay, moving on. Let me come back to our quiz. And let's take a look at sharing settings, okay? So I'm going to close this, and let's look at our settings right here. Okay, this is where I was talking about before. If I do not want to collect email addresses, if I am truly collecting an anonymous form, which you would not want to do with your students for assessment, not for an assessment, but maybe just for, you know, general feedback, you could do that. You would uncheck that if you didn't want to have email addresses collected. Okay, I'm going to keep that on. Response receipts, you can click on that, and it's either if a respondent requested it or always. And what that means is that it will just give them a splash page when they've finished submitting the form that says that they have that their response has been submitted or has been collected. Now, this is something that you want to keep clicked on because you're sending it to students. Just know that if a student is not logged into their Somerville district account, they will not get this, they will not have the ability to sign in. So it will tell them that they can't access the form or the assessment. So this is important to keep checked on if you're doing an assessment, but let's say you were trying to gather information from people that are outside of the district, or you know, you're trying to organize something, then if it's going to people outside of the district, or if you're going to have parent involvement in your quiz, you would want this to be checked off. Limit to 1 response. If you only want people to be able to respond once and once only, you want to have this checked off. And then here are, you know, your options. You can give students the ability to edit after submit. Well, if I'm giving an assessment, why would I want to choose that? Well, everything is a learning process, so we really want students to be able to go back and really reflect on whether or not they understood something, and then give them that opportunity to try to do it better that next time. So if you want that opportunity, you would choose edit after submit. See summary of charts and text responses. I typically don't select that, and I wouldn't select that for an assessment because then they can see which questions are the most popular and then know how to answer them. I'm going to skip over here to presentation now. Presentation is just a really simple couple of options to show the progress bar. So that would show students like how far along into the assessment they are. Maybe something that some students may find overwhelming, or you know, give them a little bit of anxiety if they know that they have too much left to go. But that might also be helpful too. So that is your decision. Shuffle question order. Now, this is where I said before, if you are going to choose to shuffle the question order, that gives us the automatically generated random responses within our questions. So it's randomizing the order of the questions. And if I choose to check this off, I do not want to have any numbers, listing the order of my questions as I entered them. Show link to submit another response. This, if you want students to be able to, that would have to be enabled. And then this is the generic confirmation message, but your response has been recorded, but you can choose to add that in, or, thank you. You can add your own message in, okay? And then you could click save. Here's another option here, and this is something that we'll get into more so in the advanced version, but I don't want to skip over it. Google Forms now has the ability to make it a quiz. So in this case, you can automatically assign point values and allow auto grading. And that is helpful when you have when you have to select assign point values and choose what the correct answer is. Again, that's an advanced feature that we will address in our next PD session. And so I'm going to uncheck that for right now for the purposes of this training and select save. Okay, so now we've gone over the settings, we've gone over the theme. This icon here is for add-ons. We'll go over that in the advanced training as well. But this is really important right here. So I want to just touch on this first. You always want to make sure that you preview this from what it will look like on the receiving end. Okay, so we're going to click on that, and then you can see exactly what the quiz looks like for this particular student. Now, see, since I had selected to randomize the question order, my questions are not in the same order that I put them in originally. So I would want to go back in and realize, oh, look, that doesn't look right because I have that number there. I want to go back in and take that out. So I would just come down here to the edit symbol and click on that. Or I can pop back over to this tab. This is my editing view. I'm just going to go back in here and remove those numbers, because I realized that would be confusing to students, and that's not what I want to do. Let's take that out. And then again, I can click on the preview. And we can see once again that even though that is all updated, the order is still different from this original one that I had open. So I can refresh that and we'll see a different view too. So every single student that clicks on the link will have a different view, so that they can't say, well, the first question is B, or whatever, it's going to be randomized for them. Okay, so now that I've looked at that and I think that this looks good, I'm pretty happy with it. I am going to pop back over to my editing. Okay, and you know that you're on the editing when you see these icons here. So you'll see questions and responses. You'll see these icons and the ability to send. So I'm going to click on send right now just to kind of show you different ways that you can share with students. Okay, again, since in the settings I had to automatically collect the email, this is checked off. If I wanted to change it, I would uncheck that. Okay, I can individually send this quiz right now to Corey and Tyler and Joe. I don't want him to feel left out. And Glenn. You get the idea. Okay, I'm not talking to you, Bernie. Be a good boy. So here I could type in the email addresses of the students that I wanted to share it with. I have the subject here. This is the automatic text that it gives you, but you can always change that. If you want to include the form in the email, you can check that off if you wanted to. You can also add collaborators right here. Now, if you wanted to work on an assessment with a colleague, or you wanted to share with your student teacher or with a co-teacher or anybody, you would select add collaborators, and then they would have the ability not only to see the data, but they would also have the ability to see and edit the questions. So I think I forgot to put Kevin Harris on this. So I'm going to make him the collaborator. If I wanted him to be notified, I have this checked off. I can add a message, and I can choose to send a copy to myself. And just notice that right here, this is giving him edit access. So he would be able to make changes to this particular assessment. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to cancel and then select done. We go back here one more time just to show you a couple other options you have, okay? Then you can also go here to the link and copy the link. So if you wanted to click on Shorten URL, it gives you a much shorter version. You select copy, and then you can paste that into an email or add it to your Google Classroom. This here is for any of you web designers where you wanted to embed it into a web page. We're going to skip over that too, because I think the easiest way is that for us to send it out are through the email or the link. Okay, so I'm going to close that. And then I want to also jump over here and go over what are these three dots. So these three dots give you the ability to undo the last action, make a copy of this. So if let's say this was shared with me, let's say Melissa Steger shared this with me, she made me a collaborator, but I want to make a couple of changes and then share that out with my students. I would choose to make a copy. And then this is just going to give me another copy of this where I can edit it. So that means that even though I'm a collaborator on her document, I'm not changing her questions because that's what she felt was appropriate for her class. But I may need to modify this slightly for my special education students or for my class in general. I would make a copy and then I would share that out to my students after I've edited it. The other options that we have in this menu are to move it to the trash. This is very similar to getting that link that we had in the send option. So I can choose that. And then we have our link available and I could copy and paste this and send it out. Other options we have here are to print, if we needed to print the assessment for students. Here again, add collaborators, just another area for you to go to add people that you wanted to be able to edit the document, or I'm sorry, edit the form. Script editor, we're skipping over, that's for advanced, as well as our add-ons, and I'll just show you the preferences real quick. And again, these are the default settings to collect email addresses. To make, if I click here, I can make all questions required, and that would be a very simple thing to do. And if I wanted to use that quiz option, I can assign a default quiz point value. But again, we'll go over that part in the advanced session. I'll close that out now. And then I would like to jump over and just go back to that student interest survey that I showed you earlier, okay? Now, if you are asking students to submit through Google Classroom, then you do get notifications when questions or when forms have been submitted for you to keep track of. But let's say, for example, you are you're not using Google Classroom and you want to know as soon as students submit their form, or you are trying to collect information from parents on a meeting or a field trip, or let's say we're just trying to solicit ideas for what to do about these things that we can't do right now in school. For example, you know, our award ceremonies and graduations and things like that. So let's say I just wanted to create a survey to survey the students or the parents to find out what are their thoughts about what can we do for those events? How can we have them take place? Well, maybe I would want to get a notification when that's filled out because I'm not going through Google Classroom. So what I would do here is I would go into my interest survey. Okay, so this was my original survey. And I just want to bring your attention to the responses. This here, this Google Sheets link, this is exactly what I selected to create this. Okay, so it automatically generates within one mouse click or one trackpad click. It's bringing you directly to a brand new sheet that's going to collect all this information. Now, I happen to want to know when someone submits a form. So I'm going to go to Tools from within this spreadsheet, and I'm going to choose Notification Rules. This gives me the ability to get an email whenever a change is made or whenever a user submits a form. So I'm going to choose whenever a user submits a form, and I either want to be notified with a daily digest, so each day I would get an email letting me know who has responded, or sometimes I might want to know right away. So for right now, I'm going to choose email right away and then save. And then I'm going to select done. That can always be edited later on, but what this is going to do is every single time a student submits a form, I will get an email to let me know to check on it. So if you find that is helpful to you to have a set up that instant notification, or if you wanted to just do a daily digest as a way for you to remember that, oh, well, when I get that email letting me know who has submitted it, that's when I will go in and I will check that and provide feedback. So maybe I want to just set that up as a reminder for me that when I get that email, then I know that I want to check in on this and give feedback to this assessment. So I would choose email a daily digest, and then that I would select done. Okay, so those are some ways that we can use Google Forms for assessments, surveys, for exit tickets, for entrance tickets. I may want to send something similar to the exit ticket, but maybe I want to make a copy of this and make this an entrance ticket that asks students to watch the video, or complete the lesson. This is my entrance ticket. Hey, maybe I want students to, prior to my online meeting that I'm going to have in a week, or prior to my office hours, maybe I want the entrance ticket for them to reflect on their learning and provide me with information about what they feel they're very confident in or what they feel they would like to discuss. This might be a great way for you to utilize Google Forms to collect that data prior to starting your online meeting or office hours with those students, because it can help give you a heads up as to what you need to cover or focus on depending on the responses. So I would just edit that. And again, I don't want to recreate the wheel. I just want to make a copy of it and then change change the text as necessary. So before we begin, I'll call it office hours. Okay, and I would just edit as necessary and share this out with my students. And that would be a nice way for me to get an idea of where they're at in the learning process, so that if we needed to address specific questions, because I noticed that a lot of students had similar questions, we could do that at that point. Okay, so we went over quite a bit And there are a lot of other options that I know we didn't cover because we were trying to keep it within an hour and also trying to keep it within, here are the options. Now consider how you might use this moving forward as an assessment tool or as a tool to get feedback from students as we move forward in phase 3 of our flexible learning plan. So as you're learning these new things, you're really reflecting on how it might be beneficial to you and your students. How could this help you collect information easier? How can it make your life easier by collecting student data, assessment data in this way, without having to recreate things from scratch? So how could this make things easier for you? And if you decide that it doesn't, that's okay. It's not, you don't have to use this tool, but it is a nice option. So we want you to be aware of it. I have inserted screenshots of all of the menus and the things that we went over. So if you want this, it will be linked within the PD catalog, along with screenshots about our themes and sharing settings and presentation view and all of that. The one thing I just want to point your attention to here is, and this was really nice. Let me see if I can get you a bigger view of this. Go to my responses. Okay. So you'll know that when you'll see here that when you have a question type that is asking for different options, whether it be multiple choice or a selection, then you will get these really, really helpful bar graphs, and sometimes they're pie charts. That's different if you're going to select the paragraph or short answer text. But what you'll notice about this is really great because I can then take this and just click copy chart, and I can use that information to send out another survey. I can embed it in something. That can be really helpful so that you don't have to be also an Excel or Google Sheet whiz to take the data and make it into something visual. Okay, let me come back here and show you this last page. So here are some resources for you if you want to on your own, if you get, kind of want some more ideas that are out there. Alice Keeler is a presenter, and she is really probably like the Google educating guru. I mean, there's lots of them out there. So she has a lot to offer. So I linked her website and resources specifically about forms in there. She has a lot of really helpful videos. This is Google's site. It's Google Forms for Teachers. So what that has there is a couple of different templates that you can use. And one of the templates was the template that I showed you for the exit ticket. I took it right from this website, and I made a copy of it, but so it does have some options for you. So there's also, different ideas. And then this was that template gallery that I was telling you about. So if I click on that and I choose visit, so this will open up, and at first you're going to see like it's blank. There's nothing here. But then you can go into the gallery itself, and you can look at the different types of templates that are already in there. So there's a lot of different options. So again, don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, take one of these, edit it, make it your own to get comfortable with it. Make a copy. And then there are also some other options that you have here. This is the exit ticket sample that I showed you earlier. And then this I'm going to go into during our next PD session for the advanced, because I'm still testing this and playing around with it, but it's an add-on that will take a PDF document and turn it into questions. So as I said, I'm still testing it. I just found out about it, I think on Saturday. And so I'm not going to go over that now. I will do more testing. And if I still feel like it's a valid option, I will keep that in here. If you want to check it out on your own just to see how it works, that will bring you directly to the Google site where you can add it as an extension. And then when we go into our Google Drive, if we have a PDF, this is the icon over here that I would select the PDF and then choose this, and it would create a form for me. So that also goes back to Denise, your question about importing questions. That is a nice option for PDFs that may already be out there. Okay, so I am going to stop this recording right now. I actually have another meeting coming up. I just want to see if there's any questions that I haven't. Okay, randomize the first and last name. How do you get those to stay at the beginning? In that case, that's where we would use that section feature. So that section 1 has to be at the top. They would have to answer that first. And then we would randomize the questions in those other sections. And I will add that as a topic to our advanced session. Can you edit the video so you only show a part of it? That's a very good question. There is a trick within YouTube where you can start the video at a certain point in time. And I can send you out directions to do that. Just for the sake of time. When making questions random, will that mess up where the video or photo is? So yes, it could. So that's again why we want to make those sections that we'll go over in the advanced training. That will help make sure that only what's within the section will be randomized. Can you email it to your class as per Google Classroom? This way, yes, absolutely. Yes, you can. So let's look at that. If I go into Google Classroom, let me get my shareable link here for this quiz. Shorten the URL and copy it. And I can go right over to classroom.google.com. And once this loads, okay, I can either put it in here as a posting where I want, please. And I can give a date. And I can just put the form in here, or I could choose add and put the link in here. And then I can post it, or let me just click post anyway. Or I can go in here to classwork and I can create an assignment, and this will be, I can put it in as assignment or a quiz. So I'll put it in as an assignment. And this will be your chapter 1 quiz. And I can put in the instructions, click add. Again, I'm putting in that link. Here we go. And now I say how many points it's worth and if there is a due date. And I would assign. And I can assign it to just some students or all of my students. So I'm going to assign right now. And that's it. And the spreadsheet, yes. So the spreadsheet, I apologize. I was trying to find something that was really student specific. So I went back to that interest inventory. I had a lot of questions on there. So I would suggest when you create an assessment through forms, you have fewer questions. And then this way the spreadsheet won't look so busy and difficult to be able to view. but also know that, so yes, I will go over that in the advanced training, but also you can see the student responses in here too. It just doesn't show you exactly who, you don't know from looking at this exactly who submitted that answer. So that's why the spreadsheet is helpful. But in the advanced training, I will have a couple of other spreadsheet examples for you so that you can see the information with a little bit less going on. And again, these can be very specific questions. This happened to be an interest survey, so students could answer anything that pertained to them. But these can also be very specific questions. Think about the assessments that you would give in school, what questions you would ask. Let's turn that into a Google form. And instead of going through page by page, assessing students question by question, we can assess student by student or by question and get more accurate detail as to where the understanding is and where the misunderstanding is, so that we can try to bridge that gap for students. Okay, so thank you all so much for being here. I'm sorry I can't take any more questions, but I am 7 minutes late for my 2 o'clock meeting, so I have to hop over there. I will post this as soon as I can. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get outside. It looks like it's a very nice day. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
You too. Thanks.